and welcome. Come on in, everybody. It's so nice to see you guys. If I haven't seen you on the last two streams, last night and the one before, this is stream number 3 for 2026. So we're very excited. We have a lot of new things going on here at Music Alliance that we're very excited to bring to you guys, just more value for our members. Yay. We've been working hard for you guys and you get all the benefits of it. So that's how it should be. That's how we want it. Hi, it's Janine. If you don't know me, now you do. All right. If you don't know this platform, we're going to go through some questions. We're going to go through some insight that Dr. Donna is going to give you. If you have questions, put them in the chat, please. It's going to be very difficult. We can't unmute everybody because then it would be complete chaos. Really appreciate you guys being here. This is going to be a heady one, but it's going to be so worthwhile. Quinn and I had a preview yesterday and it's really good. So please stick with it. And if you start crying, no worries. You can just turn your video off. No, it's really good stuff. And it's helping me grow personally. So welcome to Intentional Music Creativity with Dr. Don Ramos. I'm sorry, there's no applause this time, Don.
Okay.
All right, let's get it underway.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to read a couple of these statements off to you, okay? And I want you to put in the chat what your answers are. And then we're probably going to stop and comment on a few of these. So this is just going to start opening up our brains. Okay. So we would like you to remember your answers. You fully agree, you partially agree, or you never agree. You can just put an FP or an N. You don't have to write it all out because we'll go semi-fast. Okay. First question. I don't feel a need to grow. It is just an option. I'm gonna pull up my chat too. Quinn is never agreeing. Yes, I'm a never as well. There's no judgment, you guys. This is absolutely a judgment-free zone. This is just for you individually, and we're just seeing where you guys are at. Yeah.
It's actually not even to see where people are at. It's really just to get thinking about these things.
To get thinking, to see, for them to see where they're at. How's that?
Sure.
Okay, number 2, I tend to get upset when people question my core values. Do you get upset when people question your core values? Not sure. Yep. Love your honest answers. Yep. Couple of partialies. It depends. I get it. Me too. Sometimes. Yep. All right. Number 3, I wonder if how I make sense of life might limit me. Interesting, huh? I wonder if how I make sense of life might limit me. All right, we're just going to keep moving. Some beliefs that once felt empowering now feel limiting. Maybe, but keep going anyway. Okay. You guys are awesome. I love it. It's all given from a higher. Yep, I agree. Empowering is limiting our judgments. Nice. Okay, the self-improvement trend is mostly for unhappy people. Yeah, I say no.
Don't bias them, Janine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're the authority.
I know, but Quinn is answering. I am not the authority. I am definitely a student. Absolutely. Neil says, don't worry, be happy. Okay, number 6, practice on an instrument increases creative ability. Yes, Richard, I agree with you. Practice on an instrument increases creative ability. Niels is so analytical. Okay, 7, people are born talented or not. You got it or you don't. I have an opinion, but I can't bias you. All right. When I don't feel creative, I push harder rather than question how I'm creating. So when you don't feel creative, are you pushing harder or do you step back and question how and tackle it in a different way? Nina, you're lucky. I don't always feel creative. Nope, just roll and flow. I love it. That's great. All right, last question. I often feel that who I am now is not my true self. Toby, nice job, man. That probably would have been an easier way to do it, but thank you. Let me just do it all at once. I am becoming him. I love that, Richard. That's beautiful. Nice. ADHD thing. Yes, I get it. That's why I'm scattered. I'm like, all right, great. So we have our answers, Dr. Ramos.
Okay. Intentional music creativity. Welcome. Hi. I'm really feel honored and privileged that you joined us. So tonight is the human development arc for artists, and the question is there an intention to grow? So in our first meeting, we talked about improving outcomes and lowering suffering through separating facts from stories. In our second one, improving relationships, we looked at content from NVC about connecting empathetically. In our third one, we talked about our belief engine, which is content from primal beliefs research and how your inner narrative tunes your sound. And tonight, we're doing the human development arc for artists, choosing to grow, and this content is from development theory. Oops. Okay, for some reason I got a lag here, sorry. So what is the type of development research that I'm looking at here is called stage level development or stage development. So it's what is a stage model? Stage models attempt to describe the plateaus and the transitions that are common as people develop abilities. And we're going to look at some major domains here where stages are used. Obviously physical, so we're not going to spend time on that. Anyone who works out is probably experienced that you can grow real quick and then you reach a plateau and then you have to do something new to get more, etc. But other domains that this has been studied in, there's when I did this research the first time, I stopped after about 55 different domains of looking at actual research that people have done. But some of the ones I want to mention tonight are cognitive psychological development, meaning making, ego identity, moral development, faith and spiritual development, skill and expertise development, and creative development. And so on the right there, I have some people who are kind of leaders or were the people that initiated this kind of research. In that first level, a fellow named Piaget and another guy named Vygotsky, they were pretty big in launching these ideas around stage development. And Piaget looked at 4 stages of child development. These were age-related stages that he looked at. So these are descriptive. He actually studied children and he described what he saw in terms of their development. So he saw that there was distinct stages from 0 to 2 years old, from 2 to 7s, from 7 to 11, and then 12 plus. And he changed education a lot because he said, hey, children are not like little adults and you just feed them information. They're little scientists who develop their understanding and their cognitive processes, etc., through experiment, through interacting and experimenting with their environment. And he identified a process that he saw, which was when new information comes to them. So what they would do is like the scientific method, little scientists, the scientific method, you guys probably know this, but the scientific method is you observe as much as you can, gather all the facts, then you make a hypothesis, then you test the hypothesis, then you get the results, you use the results to assess your initial hypothesis, and then you redo the hypothesis and you keep doing that. until it becomes, you have so much information and data that you can actually start predicting what's going to happen. But what happens for children, he saw, was that when new information came in, they would either do assimilation, accommodation, or equilibrium, meaning they either fit the new information into their existing schema. So a schema is, like a dog schema. I know what a dog is, right? It's a furry thing with 4 legs and some fur, right? But they see a coyote, right? They go, it must be a dog. Someone tells them, no, that's not a dog. So then they have to go, okay, how do I deal with that? And they can either do assimilation where they fit the new information into their existing schema, or they can do accommodation where they change the existing schema to fit the new information, or they can do equilibrium where they try to balance what is known and what's experienced. And the reason I'm bringing it up and sharing it is because we still do that even as adults. This is really common. The fitting new information is called confirmation bias for adults, meaning when we hear something new or contradictory, we tend to just look at it in a way that doesn't so we don't have to change what we think or what we believe. Vygotsky, he was not really a stage guy. He saw more of a continuation, but there was a couple of important things that I thought were valuable. One, he identified a thing he called the zone of proximal development. So what he said was, there's a zone where we can learn and develop and grow. If the situation in that zone, or if the situation is such that it's beyond that zone, like it's too difficult, we give up because it's just you can't do it. You just give up. There's no point. If it's too below it, we just get bored because it's too easy. So there's this perfect kind of learning, growth, development zone that he called the zone of proximal development, ZPD. And then he added an idea of scaffolding, which is the stage thing. But basically, in that zone, your ability to, what he did is he said, look, in education, teachers and education and curricula, we need to define what is the ZPD for the people that are in our classes, and structure our education so that it always fits where they're at. And then we push them just a little bit past where they're at because that's the way they grow. Okay, so that's child age-related development. And the question next is, what about adults? So one guy named Mesereau, he had an idea for adults called transformative learning theory. And in his theory on the right there, he said for adults, we have to have a disorienting dilemma. If people are typically not going to grow unless there's a disorienting dilemma. Something's got to happen. That's that thing, like I said, if you're in the zone, you need to be pushed just a little past where you're currently at. Otherwise, you're not going to grow. You're just going to be happy in your zone. And he said that for adults, when that happens, if it's going to lead to transformation or to development, there needs to be critical reflection, rational dialogue, and a perspective transformation that occurs. So not assimilation. And then there needs to be action. So he defined this, and this is actually a form of education in universities and such called transformative learning. So I want to go over a couple different people's models that I've found really cool and interesting and valuable. One of my favorites is the guy named Keegan, Robert Keegan. He says that humans have at least 5 stages of potential development. A key idea that he has is that we're all subject to certain things. In other words, things that we're unaware of. Versus there are things that are object to us, that we see that we're not subject to. And in stages 1 through 3 in his model, we understand the world through a reality that we were handed and therefore that we're subject to. And then in stage 4, we start gaining the ability to reject our subjectivity and to start making object our inner and outer worlds. So we cannot change what we're unaware of. We have to make the invisible visible. We have to make the subjective objective so that we can assess the objective and choose our responses. When we're subject to things, we don't choose our response. We have reactions instead of having responses that we choose. So in his model, the process of development is one of an increasing ability to see things and become aware and make them an object that we can have some kind of power over. Now it's interesting that according to widely cited estimates, most adults don't make it to that fourth level. In fact, 6%, the estimate is 6% people stop at stage 2, 58% of people stop at stage 3, and 35%, so it's quite a few, but not the majority, stop at stage 4, and only 2% make it to stage 5. And what's a cool, interesting thing was when I was studying this, that I actually went to a seminar that went through this with people that knew him personally and taught this and stuff. Anyway, they said that when he finished his book and he talked about this, he actually had he had Zen Buddhist monks come and tell him, you know what, Mr. Keegan, in stage 5, you've described enlightenment. I thought that was pretty cool and interesting. But anyway, getting back to this, so stage 4 is that point where we become self-authoring people. Stage 3 is we're still living in a socialized world. In other words, our reality is primarily based on what we've been given, how the social world that we live in, the cultural world that we live in, the political world that we live in, et cetera, the family world that we live in. That's reality. That's what we live in, and that's what we're given. Here's a quick kind of simplified view of it. Stage 1 is the impulsive mind. This is early childhood, focus on immediate needs, impulses. Then children develop into an imperial mind, self-centered, sees others as means to their own ends. So this is late childhood and adolescence. Then they get into 3, the socialized mind, adopts values and expectations from others. This is adolescence to adulthood. Self-authoring mind 4 develops our own identity, values, and internal compass, mature adults. And 5, the self-transforming mind, we question our own identities and systems, and we embrace complexity and paradox. And like he said, this is rare in adults, only approximately 2%. So another guy looked at creativity. So that was Keegan. And what Keegan's model is based on is how we make sense or how we make meaning of our reality. What is it what ability do we have to make sense of things? So all of these models are about increasing ability. So Kaufman's looking at, what about creativity? Do people develop creatively? And his answer was absolutely. So he looked at creativity developing from personal meaning, that he called the mini C, the mini creativity, to what he called everyday usefulness, the little c, to professional mastery, the pro C, and rarely, he said, was the field changing impact, the big C. So I think you can see that these kind of, in a way, map to what Keegan's ideas were, right? The mini C would be the impulsive mind and the imperial mind, where it's all personal meaning, it's all about me, and I understand the world through my own discovery about myself, etc. Then the socialized mind, where we understand the world through that we are part of a social world, and how we navigate that world is where we're at. Self-authoring mind, this is where he said we start getting into self-authoring mastery. So this would be like professional musicians and jazz artists and et cetera, et cetera. And then self-transforming mind, the big C, is where there's transformation that occurs. For Kaufman, he said the people that are examples of this would be people like big names, Bach and Beethoven, and like people that literally were so advanced, if you will, so above that they changed their whole system. So the main traits relative to creativity, because this channel is called Intentional Music Creativity, so we want to look at what are the creative traits and influences. And all of these are age related, but I'm more interested in adults because we don't have any 2-year-olds, I don't think, in the group. But still, all of the early stages are related, of course, to young children. But like I said, like Keegan found out, and other developmental researchers also found out, a lot of times even as adults, we don't really get that far along the path of potential that we could as human beings. So there is always a kind of an age-related aspect to this. So in early child, oh, and also because just by experience, like a lot of development has to come from what we experience. So you just have more time to experience it when you get as old as I am. So early childhood, creatively speaking, is a spontaneous, symbolic, exploratory that's called the scribble stage. Middle childhood, emerging, divergent thinking with increasing fluency, flexibility, elaboration. Adolescence moves into abstract thought, self-reflection, identity synthesis. Creativity shaped by socio-cognitive growth. Young adulthood starts having peak creative potential, maturation, domain expertise, convergence, integration, and then adulthood to later life. We have the potential for that creativity manifests through our life experience, adaptation, purposeful application in real world contexts. So we have the potential. In terms of the overall idea of development themes across all domains, we develop in terms of Keegan's model with subject object, we develop from external authority to an internal authority to a meta authority. And if the word meta, it means, for instance, cognition is the ability to think about your thinking. Have the ability to view and see authority and think about authority instead of being subject to it. We move from earlier stages of certainty to complexity to paradox, where opposites can coexist. So I find that interesting because I personally have trouble with people that believe that they absolutely know, they know the truth, they know, and they're perfectly fine to tell you what the truth is and how you should be different or change or whatever, right? It's just interesting. That is associated with lower levels of development. Higher levels of development require an understanding of complexity and then into actual paradox. The world is a complex, paradoxical world. In my opinion, the world is absurd, but anyway, rule following in lower stages to context sensitivity to creative responsiveness. Love that part. And then identity is fixed, identity is constructed to non-identity. Each level describes a greater ability, and this is still key, I'll repeat this over and over. This is about ability, right? It's not about the content. Each level describes a greater ability to see more, broader, deeper, wider, higher, to handle more, and to handle more in harder, more complex situations, and to make better choices. That's what development is about, whatever realm or whatever domain we're talking about. So why grow? Why develop? One of those first questions was, I don't need to grow. It's an option. I don't need it. And it's true, you don't have to grow. And like I showed you with Keegan, a lot of people, probably the majority of people, stop at stage 3, even though there is a stage 4 and a stage 5. But all the research agrees on this. Our species, human species, is born with development potential. But that potential can remain unrealized if it's left to chance, if it's not intentional. So that's the theme of that is the theme of this channel. This is about intentional creativity, intentional development in this case. So growth is not about fixing what's broken, it's about discovering what's possible. Development expands how much of life we can inhabit consciously, how much complexity we can hold, how deeply we can relate, and how freely we can create. So what is intentional development then? It's a commitment to find out what we can become. What do you think? I challenge you with the question, are you ready to be intentional about discovering and developing your full potential? Because if you leave it to chance, you'll probably stop at 3, if you know what I'm saying. So development growth is not a moral demand or obligation. It's an invitation grounded in curiosity to discover the fullness of what a human life can become. And it's not like motivationally, it's not about a number of things that our social world and our political world and our economic world, etc., might tell us it's about. In fact, it may not lead to more productivity or dominance or status. Instead, it more often leads to more humility, more tolerance to ambiguity, more compassion, and more creative freedom. When we commit to this intention of development and accept and own, all of our realized and our latent capacities, these capacities then shape how we suffer, how we love, and how we create. So, unless there's any questions or anything about that, we'll move on to the development arc.
Anybody have any questions right now or comments that you'd like to share? You're welcome. Richard says, absolutely. Let's be intentional. Yes, I love that. This is very interesting. Yes, it is, Remedy. That's why I'm glad you guys are here because I find it very interesting myself. So we share that in common. Let me see if there were any questions. I don't think I saw any.
Okay.
I think you're good to go on, sir.
All right. So, in terms of the next section is talking about the development arc, which is very simplified and it's generic and summary. But it's basically how we might visualize how we grow and how our music grows with us as we grow. Because music doesn't just express who we are, it reveals where we are in our development. But I want to just caution that this is not, no level is about being better, like a better person or anything. Each one, if we're talking about musically, each one has its own musical value. And every time that I've shared about development with people, there's always a tendency for people to want to judge, right? Ooh, yeah, my friend, he's a level one, or that dude, that politician, he's level one for sure, maybe two max. Like that, but part of the flaw in that thinking is that we judge people's levels by the content of what they say, rather than levels are about ability. They're not about content. Okay, that's like a major thing. And it's not about what's better. I never use development theory. I don't use it to judge people. In fact, in a way, I use it the opposite. I have this belief that I hold this position. Let me tell you it that way. It's not a belief. I stand on a position that when I look at people, the way I treat them is everyone is doing the very best that they can. If they could do better, they would. That's an ability statement, right? I'm saying they can't do better because of all the things they've been socialized by, their trauma experiences, their family experiences, everything that's happened to them. They're doing the best they can. They're struggling like all of us to try to make sense of their life, to try to provide for themselves and the people that they love and protect them and all that kind of stuff. They're doing the best they can. So what I want to do and what I hope can happen out of this is that when we open our awareness that we can develop, we can then do better, right? We can be better, we can do better, we can be more creative. So no level is better, each one has musical value. I'm going to use 6 levels. These are framed creatively instead of psychologically. And here they are that I'm going to talk about. Level 1, so these relate to the previous developmental levels that I talked about. So like level 1 is survival and sensation. It's pretty basic, right? It's physical survival, physical sensations. And level 2 then becomes more cognitive, more psychological. So it goes into identity and belonging. Level 3 then in the social world, we start having the ability to assert ourselves and have some kind of power. Then we have the abilities in level 4 for discipline and craft. Level 5, exploration and meaning. And level 6, integration and transcendence. So they follow along with pretty much all of the developmental themes and theories in whatever domain we're talking about. but tonight we're talking about this applied for music. So what would that mean? So level one in terms of music would be survival sensation. It would be sensory regulation. So human focus might be safety, the body, instincts. A musical focus might be rhythm, repetition, pulse. The traits of this might be heavy beats, loops, physical response. The question might be, what does my body need to hear? So I've had the privilege of watching young children. I have a child myself. And one of the things I always love is to watch children dance. They're at level one, they completely celebrate their physicalness and they just love moving their body, and it's so awesome. And that's great. Now, in the levels, in all of the level development theory, you never lose any of the levels, right? Like I said, it's an ability. So level one is the ability to experience your body and the physical and your instincts and all of that, to experience that fully. And so there's a lot to learn and grow and develop relative to that. But no matter how much more you develop in terms of abilities to do more and more, you never want to let go of that first love of the sensation of the body. And I don't know about you, but in previous lives I've had, my favorite thing of all time was the end of a long night partying and playing music and everything. The end of the night was everybody's exhausted, I'm exhausted, and putting on reggae and just letting my body move to the reggae. It was just such a blissful thing. I just loved it so much. So that would be a level one type of experience. So the musical traits in level one are heavy beats, simple loops, hypnotic repetition, physical response, dance, and movement. So I don't want to actually try to categorize music, but I just want to say, ask a question to think about. Are these ideas representative genres or examples of a level one focus? So tribal music, early hip hop beats, EDM drops, drum driven music. I don't know what you think, but again, don't get me wrong, I'm not judging anything. I'm not saying EDM drops are low level and they're not as high minded or something. I'm just saying when we focus on that aspect of music, we're appealing to that level one ability to experience that. So, level two, identity and belonging. So, we don't lose level one, but level two opens up a bit more ability. And this is the human focus here is tribe, image, and fitting in. The music focus is style, genre, and scene. Traits are like more about clear rules, trend alignment. And the question is, who am I trying to sound like and why? Musical traits, clear genre rules, trend alignment. This is who I am, an energy of this is who I am. So it's identity with the music and emphasis on look, vibe, and culture. So some things that might be representative of this: punk scenes, pop eras, drill, tap aesthetics, fashion, and sound alignment. So the one I can speak to because I ran a recording studio and engineered and produced in a 24 track recording studio up in Vancouver, and we were heavily involved in the punk scene. And what really struck me about that scene was how much about identity it was. In fact, I would say it was more about identity than it was about the music. And one example of that, we did a number of albums with a leader of the band called the Dead Kennedys. Jeff, oh, sorry, my brain just went dead. Afro, and he was from San Francisco. So we were going to do one of his albums, and he had to cancel because he's in the hospital. And we're like, "What happened? What happened?" And what happened was he had done a performance, and all the punk people came out, and at the end of the show, he got jumped by them, and they beat him to the point of being hospitalized. And the reason they said was because he sold out. It was about identity. They felt that he had betrayed their identity. So that's kind of an example. But anyway, so there is a level of musical creativity that is centered around the body and beats. And there's one that's centered around identity and belonging. Level 3, power and assertion. The human focus here is agency, dominance, and self-definition. So instead of belonging definition, my identity relative to who I am, this is about who I am relative to others. This is about who am I in self-definition. Moving into stage 4 of Keegan. The music focuses volume, edge, and confidence. The traits are bravado, defiance, and competition. And the question would be, what am I proving and to whom? Musical traits would be aggressive delivery, ego, bravado, defiance, break the rules energy, and competitive tone. Some potential genres that might represent this level might be battle rap, rock rebellion, trap, bravado, protest music. Yeah, I would love any comments that people have. You can disagree with me. By the way, I'm not trying to say that these are representatives. I'm just saying what might be, what might fit in this level. And when people transition from one stage to the next, when they make that transition, I visualize it like you're on a plateau and you're exploring that plateau, right? So when you're at your first level, you're exploring what it feels like, what the beats feel like, what it feels like to dance, all that kind of stuff. And then you make this transition and you get into a next level, and then you spend time exploring that. And when they get there, it feels so good. It's like a new world. I'm experiencing all these new things. It's so cool. So the tendency would be to write music if you're a songwriter or producer. The tendency would be to produce stuff that explores that reflects that. And I think that's one of the reasons why this happens. But it doesn't mean that even if I'm at level 6, it doesn't mean that because I have the ability at level 6 that I don't still make music that's really at level 1, that focuses on level 1, and that's good. I love it.
So, Don, we do have a question.
Okay.
Remedy says, how are these levels scaled? Is that vodka? Come on, man.
How are they scaled?
Yes.
Maybe you could put her on him or her, whoever said that.
Can we unmute you? Remedy, give us a thumbs up.
Hello?
Oh, hello.
Hi. How y'all doing?
Good,
Hi.
how are you? Welcome.
I'm doing great, thank you. So I believe Don just answered that question with saying that if you have the ability at level 6, it doesn't mean that you cannot perform at level 3. So really, I think my question is just about exactly that, because I guess these also sound like choices aside from levels. Like when it comes to ego, we're talking about dominance. It sounds like that is a creative choice as well. So I just had a question. I was just questioning that mostly.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, because if you don't have an ability to do something, you don't have a choice, right? The
Mhm.
wonderful thing about this is as you develop, when you intentionally develop as far as you can go, you have a choice of operating at any level because you have the ability. But if you haven't
Mhm.
developed, if you never get past 1, you don't have the ability to write, perform, express, etc. Or if you do, it's not going to be authentic because it's going to be contrived and pushed and forced instead of, or mimic. You're going to be mimicking stuff instead of it being a true authentic expression of who you are.
Mhm.
Really good.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And also, my question, Mr. Dr. Don, if we're at a level 3, 4, 5, we do have capabilities of flowing in and out, like back to 1, back to two, right? If we
Yeah.
already have those abilities, you said we don't lose them. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So we can go back.
Yeah.
Should we
All
choose?
of the research in every domain says that, right? But one thing's interesting is some of the research says that, for instance, let's say you've in Keegan's model, for instance, that you've reached level 4 and you're self-authoring and you're doing good and everything's going good. But then something happens in your life that's traumatic and you have really high stress and fear and stuff like that. when we have those, we tend to regress into operating at lower levels. It's just a natural kind of thing. It's like the survival thing, right? I got to survive. So I'm going back to the level 1 survival thing. And certain events in our life can kind of limit us from being and from expressing and being in higher levels, even though we have the ability to be there.
Okay, we have an interesting question slash comment from Minister King. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Can you elaborate more about the identity phase? He says, because, hold on, it's jumping. Because, son of a gun, it keeps jumping. Because, for example, the reason why people identified with Tupac was because his ideology was based on the worldview of his mother, and he appealed to the people of the struggle. He says, what is your opinion?
Okay. So what I would say about that is, and I hope this answers your question, again, the stage of is about ability, they're not about content. So I've had this argument, or not argument, I've had this discussion with my group. We meet on Tuesday nights and discuss stuff like this. And when I was trying to explain it to them, they would say, you know what? This person, if they're at stage 3, for instance, they couldn't like X, right? Or politically, people say on both sides of the fence, right? People say that if they're Republican or if they're Democrat, they have to be level 2, right? But it's not about the content. So you could believe or you could hold any position whatsoever and be at any of the levels. It's just that the way you would hold that position would be different. For instance, a level 4 person who's self-authored, let's take level 1 for instance. In level 1 in spiritual development, people are looking for a concrete truth. They want the concrete truth. They know there's a truth and they want the truth, and they look for an authority to tell them what the truth is so that they can be in the truth. And they accept that and they subject themselves to it. But a person at level 4 could choose to be in that same group and accept the same beliefs. The only difference is that they have the ability, and the way they arrived at that was by their own self-authoring. They came to the conclusion that was the best thing for who they are. Whereas the person at level 1 didn't have the ability to do that. They did it based on the idea, on their ability that they had, which is there's a truth and I just accept it. So they're socialized into it, or they're subject to it. Where at level 4 it might be a choice. At level 1 it wouldn't be a choice, if that makes sense. So and this is important for music people, because it doesn't matter what music you like. That doesn't mean if you like battle rap, it doesn't mean that you are level 3 because you like battle rap. You know, you could come to that conclusion at any level. It just means that the ability and the way you would think about it and perceive it and logic about it, etc., the way you would approach it would come from a different place and a different ability. I
Really
hope that,
quickly
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
Yes, I think it did, but we can, yeah, did that answer your question? But Big Boss Niels, actually, he said he posted this, and I just wanted to point out, if people aren't reading it, like everyone here, Music Alliance can be as complex as you are. So we have monthly info sessions so people can drop in with the sole purpose of understanding what Music Alliance can add to your own musical journey. So yes, I just wanted to point that out. I love that he said that everyone here, Music Alliance can be as complex as you are. That's very funny. But yes, so January 15th, we will have info sessions. So come with your questions and we can help you guys out. If you are on the fence about joining Music Alliance and you have some questions, we're happy to help you out there. And then also next week we have AI with G3, and he's going to be doing some new cool stuff with you're doing some voice electronic stuff. I don't, he put it in the chat somewhere, but it's some pretty kooky stuff going on in there. And then also next week we have Drop Shop, our brand new channel, our Drop Shop on Wednesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday streams next week. So if you have a song that you would like to get reviewed in Drop Shop, something that it's in the works, then that's going to be Wednesday evening. Send the email your song at MP3 or Wave, one tune please, to my song at musicalliance.com.
And the AI producer channel, did you mention that on Tuesday?
I did. I said he's going to be working with some sort of like cool vocal stuff, vocal electronic enhancer thing.
That's fun.
Could you tell I'm very well versed in AI?
And guys, if you aren't signed up already, I just put the link to all of our membership levels. You can see the benefits and what each membership offers and the very low cost of $15, $24, or $39. So check it out. It's in the chat. Thanks.
Okay. I'm going to go through the rest of these fairly quickly because we're running out of time. But I did notice in the chats, I love it that you guys are chatting. Thank you. Someone mentioned addiction and how that affects us. And so I have a somewhat deep experience with addiction and etc. And what I would say is that addiction stops us from developing. But when we get into a program or some kind of therapy or something like Celebrate Recovery CR, which is a Christian version of AA, what happens is they what they try to do is they try to help you to develop, right? So they try to help you to move up. So I would say if you're conquering addiction and you're in recovery, it is likely that you are moving up, if you will. So like for instance, there's stages of emotional ability, and emotional regulation is one, your ability to do emotional regulation is an indicator of that you've moved up. Anyway, so let me try and go fast here. So level 4, you reach a point of discipline and craft. Human focus is mastery, structure, responsibility. Music focus is skill, form, and refinement. Traits are polished work, intentional design, and the question is, how can I say this clearly and well? This is when you're honing your craft, your music. How can I get better? How can I communicate better? How can I communicate musically better, etc. Strong structure, polished production, intentional lyrics, respect for form. Some representative genres might be classic writing, songwriting, jazz standards, film scoring, well-crafted pop. Level 5, meaning and exploration. Now the ability expands into, okay, I can communicate, but what's worth communicating? Right? The question is, what am I trying to understand? What am I doing? So the focus, human focus might be purpose, nuance, exploring inner truth. The music focus might be on emotion, complexity, honesty. The traits might be blending genres and ambiguity. Possible genres might be alternative, indie, concept albums, experimental pop, etc. All right. And the final level 6, integration and transcendence. And I think you can see that it corresponds with other ones. Keegan's model, where at his level 5, the Buddhist monk said, you're talking about enlightenment now. So in musical creativity, we can reach this level of integration and transcendence, where the focus, human focus, is on wholeness, unity, and paradox. The musical focus is on presence, resonance, and atmosphere. Traits could be things like space, silence, timelessness, and the question could be, what remains when I stop trying? And you can see that the different levels have very different ability to perceive and to understand and to express, and therefore the creative ability of what choices you make expand and expand. Some possible genres might be ambient, sacred music, cinematic soundscapes, and late career masterpieces. Musical traits, less saying and more being. So how this all works, we've talked about it already. You move between levels depending on context. But when you have the ability, you can move between any levels. If you've stopped at a certain level, then you can't go beyond that unless you're mimicking. Stress pulls us to earlier levels, as I said. Mastery at one level enables growth to the next. So these stages you can't skip them. Pretty much all the development stage research says that you can't skip levels. You can't go from 3 to 5. You have to go through 4. And artists often express multiple levels at once. So reminder, Levels describe how meaning is organized. They do not identify talent or worth or genre or content. Growth is about more freedom, not superiority, and authentic creativity includes them all. So can we develop intentionally? Can we? How? So this is my opinion, but it's an educated opinion. In other words, it's based on a lot of research and stuff I've actually also tried in terms of helping people myself. One, awareness is the door. If you're not aware, you're not going to be able to do anything. You have to have awareness, and awareness doesn't mean you're going to make a change or anything. It just means it's the door. You open it up and you go, oh, there's a new world out here. There's something different. So awareness is the door to intentional development. But you have to set that intention to develop. And you set that intention and you seek a curricula. So the word curricula comes from curriculum. It's a Latin meaning a running, a course, a race. And it implies that development's a path to be traveled. It's not content to be covered. Intentionally structured experiences, practice, and feedback that are proven to foster growth. That's what a curriculum is. So it's interesting that Piaget, talking about young children, he said the ones that are growing had an internal curricula that they set for themselves. And so open your awareness, set an intention, find a curricula, and make sure that curricula is transformative. Transformative curricula leads to development. What does that mean? Intentional guided engagement with the specific capacities that are intentionally trying to be developed. And it helps hugely to have coaches who are at least at Keegan's level 4. And keep in mind, education does not mean development. It's not simply through time, experience, or repetition. So that question at the beginning about if I practice my instrument over and over, if I practice, does that increase my creative ability? The answer is actually it might if it was part of a transformative curricula, but just on its own, it's not. And I can tell you for sure because I've played guitar now for a lot of years, and I have not set for myself a developmental curriculum, a transformative one. So all I do is noodle on the guitar, and I barely get any better, and certainly it doesn't help my creativity. If you want to develop, you can be intentional about it, and you can make it happen. Transformative curricula includes intentional disruption. This was a bit of a hard one because people don't like to be uncomfortable, but I'm telling you, you can't grow if you spend all your time to avoid being uncomfortable. Remember that zone of the proximal zone of development? You have to be pushed a little bit past that. You have to be a little bit uncomfortable in order to grow and develop. And then you acquire an ability at that level, and then it becomes good again. And then you get to push a little more, and you got to keep pushing. So when I was sharing this information with Janine and Quinn yesterday, I said, what came to my mind is I have a PhD, but I never in my life thought I would have a PhD. Come on, I'm not some brain or nothing. I'm just a normal guy, pretty average intelligence and all that. But I applied and got into a PhD program, and I thought, oh, I'm going to fail horribly here. This is crazy, right? But why would I do that? It was very uncomfortable, and that was the reason. It's because all my life I have an intention to grow. I always want to just keep growing and growing. I want to see how far I can get and how far I can develop. So you can put yourself, if you get a mentor or a coach or somebody to help you, or a community of people that are all on the same kind of path, you can help each other with pushing each other just a little bit so that you can keep growing, and you can create disorienting dilemmas, or you can use any disorienting dilemma that happens to you. You can use it as an opportunity for growth. You can either use it as why'd this happen to me? I'm such a victim. Or you can use it as, I can use this to be better. I can use this to grow in my ability to handle whatever complexity, my ability to handle conflict, whatever it is, or musically. And in terms of the formational curricula, that intentional dilemma, disruption, in order for it to turn it into a growth process, reflection, rational dialogue, directed practice with feedback loops, and supportive context. That's going to maximize your potential to grow. And that's it. One of the things about Music Alliance, that's one of the points about why we started this thing, was that we felt that we could help people to grow and develop and have better capacity and have a higher quality of life and make better music. The point of all this is I hope that this presentation has at least a little bit opened the door for you to see the world differently a little bit, to understand that you have potential, a lot of potential, and unless you intentionally pursue it, you're not likely to grow. I challenge you to grow. Thanks for your time. I'm 2 minutes over.
E3 is clapping. He feels smarter. You have people excited. This is just such good stuff. I feel so much better about who I am as a person and moving forward in my career. I really do. It feels very empowering what you give to us. So thank you so much for sharing. I know you take a lot of time and effort and you put into to this beautiful stream once a month for us. We appreciate it. And so listen, be intentional with your music, be intentional with your life, be intentional with how you create, be intentional with how you treat others. Let's just commit to each other. I think there's not enough intention in the world, because if we were intentional, I think we would be much kinder to each other and much more tolerant, much more tolerable of each other. That's just my personal humble opinion, but I love having you guys here and witnessing Dr. Don. This is always a special event for us and one of our new ones and one of our new favorites as well. So if you guys have any questions ever, home team at musicalliance.com. If you're going to submit an MP3 or a WAV file for Drop Shop, which is Wednesday, that is my song at musicalliance.com. So I actually had a nice little chat with a couple of people in the chat. So I'll be reaching out to you guys tomorrow. We're always here to help you, to answer your questions. And we wish you the best ever at being intentional with your creativity. So we will talk to you guys soon and have a great one. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.